Hello and welcome back to Park Fermi Parlay with Kieran Downey. I hope you are all well. I hope you're all surviving this winter break without Formula One. Thankfully, I've been keeping myself busy with some Formula One Lego, and Formula E is back after a little bit like a month's break. So it's the Mexico City E Prix this weekend, so I'll be watching that. Thankfully, it's not been a complete drought of Formula One. We do have some quite big news that has come out of the sport this week, so we're going to dive into that. And we're going to kick things off with Aston Martin, who have announced a pretty big restructure of their management team that has taken place with immediate effect, and it was announced this week that the CEO Andy Cowell will replace Mike Crack as team principal. Now, Andy Cowell joined the team in October of 2024 and really sort of reevaluated the team and where their strengths were, where their weaknesses were, and has revamped the structure of the team, going in a more flatter structure. Now, Cow will take the joint role of CEO and team principal, where Mike Crack will become the chief trackside officer with a focus on the performance of the team at each Grand Prix. He's obviously been the team principal since 2022, and it's not a demotion or anything like that. We'll sort of come on to that in a second, but there is more changes in the team. Enrico Cardile will also be joining the team. He is moving from Ferrari. He will join at some point this year after a bit of gardening leave. And he will become the chief technical officer, and he will oversee the design and the architecture and the building of Aston Martin's new race cars. And I believe he will be based solely in the Silverstone ecosphere for that team, sort of at the factory, whereas Mike Crack will take on everything trackside. The final change is with Tom McCulloch, who was the performance director for the team. He is moving away from the Formula One operation, and he will be focusing on the expansion of Aston Martin's broader racing activity into, I'm assuming, other series, etc. I wouldn't say any of this is really unusual. I've seen a lot of people say that when it was announced that Mike Crack has been given a huge demotion, he hasn't really been given a demotion. It is just a restructure within the team. Now, prior to this restructure, the team sort of had this old school team principal role, a la your Ron Dennis, your Frank Williams, your Flavio Briatore's, where they sort of oversaw everything that happened within that team, from the technical aspects, the car builds, the trackside operations, the marketing, the sponsorships. They sort of did it all, and everyone reported to them. And what the team is moving towards and is going to be favouring is that sort of McLaren Racing Bull structure, where you have the CEO, your Zach Browns, your Peter Bayers, and then you have the trackside role a la your Andrea Stellas and your Laurent Mekies, and they can really focus on the performance of the team at every Grand Prix. I am not really surprised by this massive restructure with Aston Martin. If you look at what has been going on, they have made some very high profile signings. Adrian Newey, they have put a lot of money into new wind tunnels, new simulators. They've got factories, like they've got a whole operation going, and they are all about improving the performance of that car. I think a big turning point for the team might have been in 2023, when the beginning of the year they got a taste of podiums and potentially rivaling for a championship, and it all just kind of fell away from them. And then 2024 was a pretty dire year for Aston Martin. They did finish fifth in the championship, but on a completely different level to what they finished in 2023. As I've said before, it is very clear what Aston Martin and Lawrence Stroll's intentions are. They want championships, they want podiums, they want race wins. And he is making all the right moves and appointing all the right people. And this restructure that's happening, I would say, is the correct way forward for Aston Martin. And it means that there is people for specific things. It is not one man sort of overseeing it all. You'll have Enrico Cardile at the factory sort of overseeing that side of it, and you'll have Mike Crack at every Grand Prix overseeing that, and then you can have your CEO, your team principal, who can free up Mike Crack to go and focus on the performance at the Grand Prix. He can go and deal with the sponsors, he can deal with the marketing, he can deal with, you know, the commission meetings and all that kind of stuff. He can take all that paperwork and bureaucracy and marketing and all that. He can take all that and leave Mike Crack to really solely focus on that, and Enrico Cardile to really solely focus on that. So I think it's a good move for Aston Martin. I'm excited to see how it plays out. I think we're entering a very interesting time for Aston Martin. They're putting all their cards on the table. They're putting the people in the positions. They are really, really, making their intentions clear. And it's just whether or not the performance equals that. And I think we are going to see Aston Martin slowly creeping up the grid a little bit. So quite excited for that. Next up is the contract extension for Spa. Now, it was confirmed this week that F1 and Spa-Francorchamps had signed a multi-year contract extension, which will take them through to 2031. I am very happy about this. It's an iconic track. Very excited to see it staying on the calendar. But sort of slid in there was the unofficial confirmation that we will be getting track rotations in future calendars. Now, Spa is on the calendar until 2031, but it will not host Grand Prix in 2028 and 2030, which means it will host 4 races over a 6-year period. Now, this track rotation is going to open up slots for other European races to be added to the calendar in those years where Spa isn't going to be hosting an event. And I say European because F1 has kind of hinted that they want to sort of put some of the European tracks onto rotation so that they can hit more markets further out. Think your Africas, your Thailands, all that kind of stuff. There's a very big interest from countries wanting to host F1. South Korea is interested. Thailand is in very late stage talks, it seems. Rwanda definitely seems like a country that may host one. South Africa seems to be very keen. There's a lot of interest from many different countries into wanting to host an F1 race. And if F1 wants to go ahead and reach those markets, unfortunately, they are going to have to add some form of track rotation in because they cannot extend the calendar past what it is currently, 24 races. Anything past 24, and I think it will just fall apart a little bit. The drivers themselves have said, Charles Leclerc came forward and said, I'm personally okay with 24 races, but 24 races is really the maximum that the teams can do. Think your engineers and all that kind of stuff. They are at the limit. They can't really go any further. On one side of it, I am very, very glad that we'll have Spa staying. It is an iconic track. When you think of Formula One, you think of tracks like Silverstone, Monaco, Monza, Spa. They are really the iconic tracks within this sport and have been around since, the very first F1 championship they raced at Spa. So it's great to see this sort of icon of the sport staying on the calendar. I do agree that we need track rotation. I do think if we want to keep it at 24 and sort of visit as many places as we can, we are going to need some kind of track rotation. I'm not against it. I've seen a bit of backlash for it. I think it is because it's Spa. I've seen a lot of people say, you could just rotate races in America. They're never going to rotate American races. There is such a big focus on expanding F1 within America. I do think the 3 races are enough. I think you've got a sort of big West Coast, a big East Coast, and your sort of southern race. I don't think we need to be racing through the streets of New York, quite frankly. Europe obviously has such a big concentration of races that I do think there is the ability to be able to rotate. I do think some races maybe shouldn't. I would say if you were going to rotate certain races that you would be looking at the likes of Imola. However, I do believe that might be one of the races that slots in with the rotation with Spa. It was kind of understood that Zandvoort would maybe be the race that Zandvoort and Spa would rotate year on year. However, Zandvoort has confirmed that they're not going to have a race after 2026. So it does seem that it would be Imola. I can't imagine that they would rotate Monaco, Silverstone or Monza. I do think we're looking at Spa and Imola maybe being your rotational races. And it does mean that we will get to, sort of go to the likes of Africa, maybe the likes of Thailand, that kind of stuff. As I said, I'm not fully opposed to rotation. I think it can be quite exciting and it'll keep it fresh, keep it interesting. So we'll keep an eye on that and see what happens. They do have a couple of years. The first the first year that Spa won't be on is 2028. So they've got a couple of years to kind of figure that out. And finally, the very big news coming out of the Alpine camp, they have 2 more reserve drivers. Now, they obviously have their driver lineup signed. That was Jack Doohan and Pierre Gasly, and they had signed Paul Aron to be a reserve driver for the team. There was a lot of rumours that Franco Colapinto was going to be joining the team, and it kind of seemed to subside for a little bit, and then it really ramped up at the beginning of the week, and then the announcement came that Ryo Hirakawa had signed as a test and reserve driver for the team. Not the driver we were expecting. Hirakawa had recently been with McLaren. He was part of their driver development program. He also has links with Haas because of their links with Toyota. I believe that him moving to Alpine as a test and reserve driver ends his association with McLaren. Not too sure about the Haas links. Part of this deal with Alpine means that Ryo Hirakawa will also take part in FP1 in Japan in April. However, the big news was still yet to come, and it came, I think, the day after, that they have signed Franco Colapinto as a reserve driver for the team. So they now have 3. And this is where it gets interesting. Now, obviously, Colapinto did have quite an impressive stint in F1 to the end of 2024 when he replaced Logan Sargent at Williams. He scored 5 points in his first 4 races. However, his final 5 races were plagued with some fairly high-profile crashes. It kind of seemed that he came into the sport and had garnered such a big interest from the teams, and then it maybe kind of soured a little bit with the many crashes that he did have. However, I think what a lot of the teams spotted was potential. Potential in both a sporting and commercial point of view. And as I said, it garnered quite a big interest from multiple teams. There was rumours that Red Bull were very interested in him. There was rumours that Alpine were obviously very interested that have, been confirmed. Flavio Briatore had made quite a few comments that he was very impressed by Franco Colapinto. Now, as I said, he has signed a deal to be reserve driver for the team, but the very interesting part is that it's a multi-year contract, and I have never noticed teams to sign multi-year contracts for a reserve driver. Now, the understanding is that he will be in an F1 seat sooner rather than later. And the notion that Colapinto will be in a seat sooner rather than later has only been emphasised after comments made by James Vowles, who said that part of the reason that Williams released Colapinto from his contract with that team to allow him to go and sign with Alpine is that when they were sort of negotiating with Alpine, was that Alpine were offering Colapinto a clear way back onto the Formula One grid. And the bit that got me interested in that was that Vowles had said in 26, potentially even 25. Now, the confirmation that Colapinto is joining the Alpine team has done nothing but put huge pressure on Jack Doohan's shoulders. He seemed to have done everything right. He abandoned his F2 career to really focus on his aspirations of becoming an F1 driver, and he went full hog in with Alpine. He obviously signed the contract for 25. He got the chance to race for them in Abu Dhabi, and I didn't think that we were expecting much of Doohan in Abu Dhabi. I thought we, just use it as an embedding session, and, we can figure out a plan to make sure he hits the ground running in Australia in a few months' time. And now I'm seeing a lot that Doohan has 5 races, 6 races, maybe even 10 races to fully impress the Alpine team. And if he doesn't impress, I'm assuming Flavio Briatore, he's out. And he will be replaced by Franco Colapinto. Now, Briatore has also told La Parisienne, which is a French media outlet, that he's not above swapping drivers out. He is very willing to swap a driver into a seat if the driver that is holding that seat is not performing well. So it seems that pressure is on for Jack Doohan to impress. He needs to come into 25, he needs to hit the ground running, and he needs to be scoring points, it seems. He needs to be, put in the fight. He needs to not have any real big mistakes, avoid the crashes, and really put the work in to keep his seat, because there could be, 6 races in, we head to Miami and he's out and Colapinto's in. Now, I was really excited going into this year to see Jack Doohan and, you know, watch him evolve as a driver and, you know, hopefully have a quite decent year. Now I'm worried for him. I'm worried for him, and I'm going to put it out there. I don't think he's finishing the full year. I would say he'll be lucky to do half a year before Briatore swapped him out. There's just something not sitting right. And with any rookie that does have, you know, the odd slip-ups here and there, I just don't think Jack Doohan can afford it. And I think as soon as there is a sign of weakness or non-performance, Briatore swapping him out and putting Colapinto in. And listen, do I think that is a smart move? That is yet to be seen, because you're essentially swapping one rookie for another rookie. Granted, Colapinto will have 9 races under his belt. However, as I said, within those 9 races, 5 points in his first 4 races, followed by 5 races of quite big, high-profile crashes. And there is a lot of work that Colapinto has to do. He, obviously, as I said, he was impressive. He was fast. He was in and around his teammate, or he was ahead of his teammate. And, you know, compared to what Logan Sargent was doing, it seemed like Colapinto was just Williams's prayers had been answered. And then it turned quite sour towards the end. I don't know, it's a risky game that Alpine's playing by, you know, bringing Doohan on, putting this huge amount of pressure onto Doohan, because even if that's not the case, say it's not, he's just signed as test and reserve driver and he's just going to be linked with the team because maybe Doohan's only signed a 1-year contract. I think he has only signed a 1-year contract, and it means that in 26, Colapinto's ready and he can just step in. But it doesn't seem that Doohan's going to last a full year. And all that's happened is they've put such a pressure onto Doohan and such a focus onto Doohan that everyone is going to be watching every step that man makes, from the fans at home to the media, the teams. Everyone is going to be so focused on Jack Doohan because there is potential he's going to lose his race seat. The weight of the world is on his shoulders, and I just feel like there's going to be some slip-ups and it's just going to be, nah, you're out, see you later. We'll see what happens, eh? We'll see what happens. And that is sort of everything from us. We also have the teasers that are coming from Ferrari. I don't know if y'all have noticed this, but they've sort of revamped their social media a little bit, and I'm enjoying the new vibe they've got. And the red that is featured within this is not the sort of Ferrari red that we're used to. It's a sort of deeper colour, and I think we're going to get a different red on the livery this year, a sort of deeper maroony, almost deep red wine colour. So keeping an eye on that. They're obviously going to be revealing their livery at the F175 event and then releasing their car, revealing the actual 25 Challenger in Fiorano a few days after. Williams is going to be revealing the car a few days before F175, but the livery at F175? I think that's the case. Anyway, we'll be obviously going through all the liveries as and when they get released. But that is everything from us just now. Let me know your thoughts on everything that's happening down at Aston Martin. What's your thoughts on the Spa rotation? And what is your thoughts on Colapinto joining Alpine? Very interesting times ahead, I have to say. But that is everything from us. We'll see you soon. Enjoy the rest of your day. Love you. Bye.